Hello guys, welcome to the next session of developing e-commerce application from scratch using Angular and a Spring Boot. In the last session we discussed on how we can show these uploaded image preview. Like we created this grid and we shown like whatever image will be chosen by the admin, that image preview will be shown into this below section. So we have seen how to create this image preview section in the last session itself. Now in this session we are going to see how we can create a drag and drop image area as well. So as of now, if admin want to choose any file, then admin have only one option, that is choose files, and alongside we are going to add one more option that is called as a drag and drop area. So admin can drag any image, and also like by dragging and dropping those images, admin can upload the images as well. So we are going to create and implement that functionality in this particular session, and alongside we are going to make this UI bit more beautiful. As of now, these choose file buttons and these everything is not looking quite good, so we are going to make some improvements in that as well. So without wasting much more time, let me just go back to the Visual Studio Code. And over here, the very first thing that we have to do is we have to design our UI. So we have to design our drag and drop area. So let me just go to these src app, and then let me just go to my add a new product component. Inside this, let me just go to the add a new product component.html file. So over here in the last session we created this particular division. This particular division is basically responsible to show the image previews. So over here, if you see, we have the input which is having the type is equals to file. So this particular input type file is nothing but this particular button that we are able to see. This is a choose files button. So similarly, what we have to do is in the same area we have to just implement some drag and drop area. So let me just do one thing. Let me just first of all create some area for me so that I can just write some code. So now over here, what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to create one division, and over here for this division I'm just going to apply one class. Let's suppose a that class name is something like a drop zone. So I'm just going to apply some styles for this division. So this class is not created yet, so we have to create this class in our CSS file. So let me just go to my CSS file, and let me just go to this add new product dot component dot CSS file, and let me just add this particular class over here. So dot drop zone. Now this drop zone is going to have some styles. So let me just quickly show you what are the different styles that we require. So initially, like I'm just going to add some height to this class. So that height might be, let's suppose, a 150 pixel. And as of now, I'm just going to assign those values. And if something goes wrong or if something looks weird, then we are going to change those values. So height will be a 150 pixel, and I will just apply the minimum width, which will be of 100 pixel. And then I'm just going to display it as a table. So let me just use display is equals to a table. Now let me just quickly add a background color as well, so that we can just observe some changes on a UI. So let me just add background color as a hash triple E. So this is nothing but a light gray color. So I'm just going to apply that color. Now let me just save these changes and let me just compile it. Yeah, my application is already in running state. So let me just go back to the Google Chrome. Let's see what it is looking like. So it is basically looking like this particular box. So now I just want to increase some width as well, and alongside I just want to give some border as well. So let me just come back to the VS Code, and let me first of all add width is equals to, let's say, 300 pixel, and then let me just add one border. So border will be, let's suppose, a dashed border, maybe dashed, and then size will be a 1 pixel, and color will be, let's suppose, this kind of dark gray color I'm just going to assign. Now let me just save this code. Let me just come back to the Google Chrome. Yes, now this particular area is looking quite good, and I just want to do one thing. I just want to make the border, I just want to give some corners to my border. So let me just assign a border radius. So let me just come back and let me just assign a border radius, and that will be of 10 pixel. Let me come back to the Google Chrome. Yes, now it is looking quite good, and the only thing that we have to do is we have to take this area into the middle, we want to take this at the center. It is currently it is left aligned, so we want to take it as a at the center. So for this, let me just assign margin left is equals to auto and margin right is equals to auto. And now let me just save this code. Let me just come back, and yes, now it is looking perfectly fine. So our area is looking perfectly fine. In this particular area, we have to give some text as well, right? So we have to give some text like drag and drop your files here, or maybe drag and drop or browse a files here. So something like the text that we have to give. So let me just show you how we can give those text as well. So for this, let me just come back to the VS Code again, and let me just go to the HTML file. Over here, inside a drop zone, inside this drop zone, we have to apply one more division like this, and then we can just give whatever text we have right now. So let me just give it as a let's suppose drag and drop your file, or browse a file, or browse file, something like this. So let me make it as more correct. Yeah, browse a file. And now let me just save this code. Let me just come back to the Chrome, and yes, as of now this particular text is looking like this. So now what we want to do is we want to take it as a horizontally and vertically at the center. So we want to take it in that way. So let me first of all do one thing. Let me just create one more CSS class, and then let me just let me just apply that CSS class over here. So let me just do one thing. Let me just apply one class. Let's suppose text, maybe something like a text wrapper. You can give any name basically, but that name should makes some sense. And now let me just copy this name, and let me just come back to the CSS, and let me just use dot text wrapper, and then let me just make it as a display is equals to table cell, and after that let me just use vertical align is equals to middle, like this. And now let me just save it. Let me just go back to the Google Chrome, and yes, now it is vertically at the center, but similarly we want to take it as a horizontally center. So for this again we have to apply one more class. So let me just do one thing. Let me add one more division, and inside this division let me add this particular text, and let me just apply one more class that is called as a, let's suppose, centered, like this. And now let me just copy this class name. Let me just come back to the CSS. Let me just use dot centered, and let me just make it as a text align is equals to center, like this. And now yes, it is looking perfectly fine. So now if you see we can drag and drop images on this particular area, but we have this browse button as well. So we want to make this button active. As of now, if you just click on browse, nothing happens. So we want to make it as a active, and whenever someone will click on the browse button, then it should open our it should pop up our files section where we can choose the files. So that section we want to use. So now let me just do one thing. Let me just go back to the VS Code, and over here for this browse, let me just apply some styles. So let me just apply some styles for this browse itself. So let me just first of all make it as a anchor tag, and inside this anchor tag let me just put my browse text, like this. And now what we have to do is we have to give a click event for this anchor tag. So whenever someone will click on this anchor or maybe the browse, then we have to give the click event. So on the click of this particular browse button, what we have to do is we have to just call our input button. So whatever we have input button previously created, the same input button, the same thing that we have to call when someone will click on this browse button. So over here previously we have created this input button. So what we have to do is we have previously assigned a name, that is a select file, to this input button. So over here what we have to just do is we have to just copy a name. So don't need to copy the hash, just copy a name like select file like this, and then let we just use dot click. So click is a function, so we have to use a bracket as well. Now let me just save this code. Let me just come back to the Chrome, and now let me just click on this browse. Let's see what happens. So yeah, now whenever I'm just clicking on the browse button, so it is giving me this finder window where I can just choose some file, and I can just see the preview as well. But now as we are using this browse button, we don't need to show these choose file button. So that's the reason we have to hide this button as well. So for this, let me just apply one style. So for this input type is equals to file, I'm just going to make it just apply one style, that is a display, and I'm just going to assign like none, display is equals to none. And now let me just save this. Let me just come back, and yes, now choose file buttons is not visible, but if you click on the browse button, it is opening these finder window, and you can just choose any image that you want. So it is working perfectly fine and as expected. But again, if you see, like there is no any special styles for this browse button, and we are not changing our cursor as well. So any normal user will not be able to get that this browse button is clickable. So we want some styles so that user will get to know that this browse button is clickable. So let's apply some styles as well to this browse button. So for this anchor, I'm just going to apply some class. Let's suppose I'm just going to create one class like browse dash button, and now let me just copy this class name, and let me just create that class. So let me just come over here, and let me just make it as a dot browse button, and then the class that the styles that I'm just going to apply will basically apply some maybe a color, or maybe we can make it as let me just think on this. So maybe we can just apply, let's suppose, color, and maybe let's try a blue color. Let's see what happens. Let me just go to the Google Chrome, and yes, the blue color is looking perfectly fine, and user will quickly get to know that yes, this particular button is clickable. And I just want to assign a cursor as well, because I just want to make it as a pointer. So let me just come back, and let me just make it as a cursor is equals to pointer like this. And now yes, now it is looking perfectly fine, and cursor is also changed, and this browse button color is also changed. So it is looking perfectly fine. Obviously, if you want, you can just apply some other color and other styles as well to this entire area. So everything is looking perfectly fine. The only thing that we have to do is we have to just create one directive, so that whatever images we will drag and drop over here, those images should be uploaded successfully. So as of now, like if you just try to drag and drop image, it will not work, because this particular area is still not active. That's the reason it will not work. It is just opening whatever image we are trying to drop, it is just opening in the new tab, but that is not expected functionality. We have to make this drag and drop area active. So for this, what we have to do is we have to create one directive. So let me just quickly show you what kind of directive we have to create, and then what are the contents that will reside into that directive. So first of all, let me just stop the current execution of my application. So let me just use Control C, and it will stop the current execution of the application. So over here we have to write one command that is ng or maybe you can just type generate directive, and I'm just going to make it as a drag. I'm just going to give the name as a drag, so it will create basically a drag directive. So let me hit the enter and let me just wait for a couple of seconds so that it will create a drag directive. So now a drag directive is already created. Now let me just close this terminal and let me just go to the files, and now if you see, this file is created that is called as a drag.directive.ts. Now again over here, this particular directive, inside this, what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to apply or write some functions which will be responsible for every single event. So for it will be, first of all, we will create one function which will be responsible for drag over. Then we will create one more function which will responsible for drag leave, and then we will create a third function which will be responsible like when actually image is dropped. So there will be three different functions, and again, as of now you might get confused, but trust me, whenever I will write those functions, then you will get every single thing. So as of now, maybe I'll just try to explain the functions, but if you are not getting like what I'm trying to explain, just write the code as it is, and at the end you will get every single thing. Then let me first of all create one function that is called as a on drag over. This function is going to create this function is going to take one event as a parameter, and that event is nothing but a drag event like this. So this drag event is basically provided by the Angular itself, so we don't need to worry about this, like we have to just use a drag event. Then again we have to use a couple of decorators. So first of all, we have to use a decorator that is called as a host listener, and then inside these we have to give a parameter that is called as a drag over like this. Now after this, what we have to do is we have to just bind one event. So let me just use and let me just bind a dollar event like this. And now inside these curly brackets, what we have to just do is we have to just use event, that is evt dot prevent default. So these are basically functions which are provided by the Angular and which are basically related to the event itself. So if you want to check out the description, the simplest way is you can just hover on this function. You will get all the information which will explain you about this prevent default function. So in that way you can just get all the information that is required. And then the next step that we have to is we have to just call one more function that is called as a stop propagation like this. And at the end we have to just apply one background color. Now over here I haven't created a background color variable, so let me first of all quickly create one variable which will store my background color. So let me just use private and let me just make it as a background, and initial value will be, let's suppose, hash triple E, which is a light gray. And then what we have to do is we have to give again some decorators. So let me just use a host binding, and then let me just make it as a inside double quotes, let me just make it as a style dot background like this. And now let me just save this code, and inside this, whenever this particular event will occur, which is a drag over, what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to change my background color, and I'm just going to assign one new value that is called as a hash 999. So all these color codes are basically a different shades of a gray color. So one is a light shade of gray color, one is a dark shade of gray color, but of all these shades that I'm using are shades of gray color only. Now this function is created for a drag over. Let me create one more function that is public and on drag leave like this. Again this function is going to take one event. So let me just use evt, and that will be of type a drag event again like this. And again we have to just use @host listener on this function. So let me just add @host listener, and then over here we have to just use a track leave comma, and then again we have to bind one event. So let me just use dollar event like this. And now again we have to call the same functions. So let me just copy these evt dot prevent default and evt dot stop propagation, and then after that I'm just going to again change the background color, like this dot background will be a back to the EEE like this. And now lastly I'm just going to create one more function when actually files will get dropped, that is called as on a drop. This function is again going to take one parameter. So that parameter will be again one event itself. So let me just use evt, and again which will be of type a drag event like this. And then again we have to use the host listener. So let me just use @host listener, and let me just use a drop, and again we have to just bind one event. So let me just use dollar event like this. And again we have to just call these two methods like stop propagation and prevent default. But after that we have to just assign a background as well. So this dot background is equals to, and I'm just going to make it as hash triple E only like this. And after that we have to write some logic. So this particular function will be responsible or will get called when the file will get actually dropped. So when file will get actually dropped, so that time what we have to do is we have to emit those files. But again, as we have seen previously, we are not going to emit files as it is. We are going to emit those files in the form of file handle. So file handle is basically an interface that we previously created. It is nothing but like what like if I just try to show you the file handle. So file handle is an interface or maybe a model that we have previously created. So over here this particular file handle takes two different values. So first will be a file and second will be a URL. So this file is nothing but actual file, and the URL is nothing but a URL which will represent to this file. So URL will be required when we want to display those files in our preview area or display area. So for to display it on a UI we require the URL. That's the reason we are storing it in a that way. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a let file which will be of a file handle, which will be of type file handle. So over here it is not giving me the suggestion, so but yes, we will just import it and then we will just make it as a null like this. So it is giving me the error on a file handle, so it is not able to recognize where my file handle is basically stored. So let me just do one thing. Let me just write the import by myself. So let me just use import, and then let me just make it as a, let's suppose a dot slash or maybe what we can just do is import file handle from inside dot model slash file handle dot model like this. And now let me just save this code. Now let me just come back below, and over here what we will just do is we will create one object, or maybe we can give some specific name as a file handle only, so that it will be easy to understand. So we will just create a file handle, and initially we will assign the null value. And after that what we are just going to do is we are just going to use evt dot data transfer dot, and then we have to use a files. This files is nothing but an array, but we are going to use a 0th index file. So over here we are just like file is nothing but array, like we can have the multiple files, but as of now we are just going to take a 0th index, that is a very first file which will be present into that array. And after that we are just going to store it in a variable that is called as a const file. Now after using this file, or after taking this file, we have to create a URL as well. And to create a URL we require a DOM sanitizer. So let me just inject that DOM sanitizer. So private sanitizer, you can give any name, and let me just use a DOM sanitizer like this. Let me just come back, and over here I'm just going to do is this dot sanitizer dot bypass security trust URL, bypass security trust URL. Inside the brackets we have to just call window dot URL dot create object URL, and then what we have to do is we have to pass our file as an input. Now this particular function, entire function is going to return us the URL. So let me just store it into a URL variable like this. And then what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to assign file handle is equals to, then what I'm just going to assign a file comma URL like this. And now whatever file handle we will create, we have to just emit that file handle. So again, to emit this we have to create one property which will be a event emitter. So let me just create that property. So inside this so inside this, at the top, let me just create one emitter. So let me just use @output. So @output and @input, there are two different decorators. So these decorators are basically useful when you want to communicate between the two different parent and child components. So that's the reason we have to use @input and @output decorators. So let me just use if files. So this is the name, you can give any name. I will be using event emitter. So let me use event emitter. So what it will event, what this event will emit, it will emit the file handle. So that's the reason we have to give a type, that is a file handle is equals to new and then event emitter like this. And now let me just save this code. Now over here I'm just getting one error. Let's see what happens. So the type event emitter is not a generic. Okay, so we can just keep it as it is right now, and we will just come back to this as and when required. So let me just come back below, and over here let me just use this dot files dot emit, and then over here we have to just emit my file handle like this. And now let me just save this code. So over here again I was just expecting, like as soon as I just write this particular line, I was expecting that this error should be resolved. So let's see what this error is again saying. So it is basically saying that the import file handle, and then it is saying type event emitter is not a generic. So let me just try to do one thing. Let me just try to remove this particular file handle from here, and let's see what it basically does. It is again basically giving us the same error. So let me just try to do one thing. Let me just see my import line. So it is basically we are importing this from a stream, and I think we have done some wrong things over here. So we have to import it from the @angular /core. And now let me just try to do one thing. Let me just apply a file handle over here, and yes, now error is vanished. So the error was not here, the error was in the import line. We were importing the wrong event emitter. That's the reason we were getting the error. So now our directive is completed and every single thing is done. So now let's do one thing. Let's copy this selector, which is app drag. Let's copy this selector, and then what we have to just do is we have to come back to our HTML, and inside the HTML what we have to do is we have to give this what we say, a selector that we just copied. Now in the drop zone division, I am just going to give this directive, which is a app drag. And then lastly what we have to do is if you just remember, we have just created this particular file, and we have created a event emitter. So we have to what we say, so we have to just bind these files inside this HTML as well. So how I'm just going to do is, I'm just going to use a files, which is my event emitter name, and I'm just going to bind it, which is a which with the help of these rounded brackets. And then what we have to do is, we have to create a function. So let me just create one function that is called as a file dropped, and then again it will be a event. So let me just use a dollar event like this, and now let me just save this code. And again, this function, like whatever function we have just used over here, this function we have to create in our add new product component.ts file. So let me just come to this add new product.component.ts file, and at the end let me just create that function. Again, this is going to take one event, so let me just use the event. And then the last thing that we have to just do is, we have to, like whatever event we are getting over here, then we have to fetch whatever event that we are getting over here. From that event we have to just, this particular event. So in this event we will get basically an object of file handle. So the same file handle object we have to push it into our product array. So maybe instead of the event, what we can just do is, we can just give some proper name, like a file handle, which will be of type a file handle. That will be a more specific, but inside our HTML we can just keep it as a dollar event only. So we can just keep it as a dollar event only. Let me just come back to the TS, and let me just do one thing. This dot product images dot push, and I'm just going to push my file handle object. So over here, if you see, like we have previously created this particular product, and this product contains the product images array. This array will contain all the images, so that's the reason I'm just pushing my file handle object into the product images. So now let me just save this code, and I think we have done. So we can just check that out, like how our code is currently working on our UI itself. So now let me just start my application, like npm run start like this, and let me just wait till my application starts. And if your application is not stopped already, I will request everyone that just stop the application, because we have done a lot of the changes. Just stop the application and just restart the application, so that everything will remain smooth. And now our drag and drop area is looking quite good. So again, we haven't done anything. So now let me just drag an image, and let me just try to drop the image. Now if you see, whenever we are just coming onto this drag and drop area, the color is getting changed. So it is basically a dark shade of the gray color. And if you remember, in our drag and drop directive, we have wrote 3 different functions, and in those 3 different functions we were setting the background color, and this is happening over here. So if you see, like whenever I'm just leaving this drag and drop area, the color is again back to the light gray. But whenever I am just coming to this drop area, the color is getting dark gray. So all these things we have done into that directive. Now let me just try to drop the image. Let's see what happens. And yes, as soon as I dropped the image, we are getting the image preview as well. Now let me just try to do one thing. Let me just try to drag and drop one more image. Yes, it is working as expected. Let me just try to browse one image from the area, and yes, that image is also working as expected. Let me just do one thing. Let me just browse one more image, and yes, it is also working as expected. Now this particular first image, I didn't like this image, so I just want to remove it. So let me just try to remove this particular image, and yes, it is also working as expected. Now let me just fill up the form. Let's suppose iPhone 13 Pro Max. Inside the description, let me add the same. actual price, let's suppose 1 lakh rupees, and discounted price may be a 98,000 rupees, like this. And let me just click on the add product. Let's see what happens. And yes, our form gets reset, but our images are not getting reset, so we have to reset it manually. So I'll just explain you how we can do that as well. But as of now, let me just go to my MySQL, and let me just try to see whether my images are stored or not. So we just added one product, that is iPhone 13 Max Pro Max. So yes, that product is added, and the product ID is equals to 1. If I just go to the image model table, then yes, 3 different images are added. And yes, previously we added 3 different images, so 3 different images are added. And if you just go to the product underscore image table, then yes, with the for this product ID 1, we are able to see 3 different image IDs like 2, 3 and 4. Yes, from the database perspective, everything is looking perfectly fine. The only thing that we have left back is we have to reset our image area as well, which is similar to the form. So for this, let me just come back to the VS Code. Let me just go to the TS file, and over here let me just go to the add new product function. So over here we are just doing product form dot reset. After this, what we can just do is we can just do this dot product images is equals to, and we can just assign one empty array like this. And now let me just save this changes, and now let me just come back to the Google Chrome. This time, now let me just try to do one thing, iPhone 7, and let me just give a description as iPhone 7 only. Price is nothing but a 50,000, discounted price is nothing but a 48,000. And let me just browse one image like this, and let me just try to save this. And after saving, I'm expecting that my form should reset and my images also should reset. Now let me just click on add product, and yes, everything is looking perfectly fine, and everything is now working as expected. And again, if you just check to the database, those images will get saved. So let me just quickly check into the database, and let me just refresh this product underscore image. And yes, for this product ID 5, we have 2 different images like 6 and 7. So everything is working perfectly fine. So I hope you got an idea around this, like how we can create a drag and drop area. And I just tried to explain every single thing, but again, explaining every single thing like whatever we have wrote into this drag and drop directive may not be possible, because it is totally out of the topic and out of the subject that we are going to discuss in this session. But again, if you don't have much knowledge, you can just type the code, and from name itself you will get most of the things. But still, if you have any questions, let me know into a comment section. I will try my best to help you out in that case. And I hope you enjoyed this session, and I'll see you in the next session.